So here we have it, about to embark on the trip of a lifetime. My mate Patrick has generously offered to fly me in his little plane off to the barrier. And at the barrier, I'm going to meet up with my mate Baz, who's been sailing solo. And we're going to sail from the barrier back to Tauranga. And then, all going well, we're going to go mountain biking in Rotorua. Chris is coming down to pick me up, take me home. Pretty sure one of these moving parts is going to fall apart at some stage, but if not, the weather is looking on point. It should be a good trip. I'm going to take some videos on the way, show you what we're doing. Looks like my pilot's arrived. Not sure if you've flown before, but pilots are busy. There's so many checks they've got to do before they take off, and here's Patrick having a good look around the plane to see what's going on. It's a pretty small little plane. As you can see here, I can barely get my knees out of the way of the controls while we're flying. Oh, that's it. I kind of had this feeling something was going to go wrong, and sure enough, we're about to take off and checking the brakes, and the right hand brake pedal goes to the floor. Tell you what, you don't want to be pulling in an Okiwi without both your brakes working properly, and you don't want to be stomping your brakes coming into land and be dragged off to one side at 120 kilometers an hour either. Anyway, that means the trip's off. Boo, pretty disappointed. So at this point, Patrick and I enjoyed a lovely catch up and chat to a beautiful sunset after almost melting in the sun doing all the pre-flight checks. As you can imagine, I was devastated. Patrick was pretty disappointed as well, and we thought about the different ways we might be able to hijack other planes, get a ride, bludge a ride, find another plane, steal another plane, or somehow get across to the barrier. I was very aware at this point that I had no way of contacting Baz to let him know that he wasn't going to be able to pick me up at Orama. I had to get hold of him on channel 77 UHF, and when I contacted Jess to let her know that she didn't need to pick me up for my little transfer from Okiwi to Orama, she said she didn't have any UHF where she was. I felt really bad about this, knowing that Baz at the other end expected me to fly in any minute and then be driving across, and he'd have to come pick me up. And it was coming up 8:30, and I had no way to get hold of him. Eventually I gave up, didn't know any way to get in touch, and Patrick and I decided that we might call the club the next day, see if we could get another plane, but it was a real long shot. So I went home absolutely exhausted and crashed. The next morning I woke up, watched some TV, and got a phone call from Patrick saying, if you're keen, it's on. So I called up Jess. She said she might be able to transfer me across, and got heard from Baz at exactly the same time saying that he was still around and he didn't hate me, and he'd still come pick me up if I could make it. The problem is the club planes are Robins, and they're a lot smaller than Patrick's plane. So I wasn't sure if I'd be able to fit in the fishing line and Baz's spear. Now, the only reason really he was willing to take me and go on holiday with me was obviously for this spearhead, which he had bent. So I wasn't sure if he'd come pick me up if he found out that I hadn't been able to bring it. So I didn't mention this to him, and we just did our best to get it on board. Amazingly, it all fit. The brakes worked, everything else seemed to be in good order. It was sunny again. I was a bit afraid that I'd melt, but I was far less nervous this time. I was actually pretty nervous the first time flying and wasn't able to absorb all the cool stuff that was happening. But this time I was much more relaxed and thoroughly enjoyed exploring the controls and hearing from Paddy all the interesting facts about flying. Wasn't long before we were able to spot pork chop at Okiwi, did a bit of a loop around Baz, and then got our approach sorted for Okiwi. The weather was absolutely perfect. It was forecast to be picking up to a good 20 kilometers an hour of winds, but it ended up being absolutely nothing at all, and we zoomed on in for a silky smooth landing. which was a little bit terrifying still, but we survived. At this point, we were hoping to have a connect with Jess and Mike, who had very generously offered to take me across from Kiwi to Orama, where hopefully I'd find Baz. And it was great to see them again, living the dream on the barrier, apparently having some epic surf at a secret surf spot the day before that I won't tell you about. And they took me over to Orama, where I was met by Baz.
Sup, Baz? We made it! What have we got there? Crayfish. Oh!
Due to some weather conditions that Baz, the skipper, knew about, we decided that the best thing to do was to head across to Great Mercury Islands, which was going to be about a 6-hour sail. However, it was beautifully calm to a fault, and we started up by motoring, but we had all our sails up and were ready for when a bit of a wind caught us along the way, and we had a lovely, absolutely beautiful sail to the Great Mercury Island. We arrived in time for a beautiful sunset and caught ourselves a pretty average sleep, to be honest, with a bit of a lip lapping of water against the boat keeping us awake, but woke up to a bunch of dolphins playing outside the back of the boat. It was a bit overcast and didn't look all that inviting, but Baz had a plan. He wanted to get me to drive his boat around in circles out in the middle of the ocean while he tried to spear a kingfish. So rather nervously, to be honest, I drove his boat around in circles in like a 1 to 2 meter swell. Didn't really know what I was doing, but managed to not crash a $100,000 yacht into rocks, and also to not leave Baz stranded, and also somehow not get sunburnt. The sun had come out and wind had eased, and it was absolutely beautiful. So we decided that the best thing to do would be to cook our fish, eat it fresh, and park up in this completely deserted, beautiful bay. The photos do not do it justice. And after a good feed, we decided it was time for a naked snorkel around the bay, which seems like quite a fun idea until Baz calls out to you, "Hey, you're not to do it around sharks, eh?" And I'm like, sort of. And he's like, "Yeah, I just saw a 2 meter bronze whaler." And I was like, "Well, it doesn't really matter. They don't eat people, right?" And it's like, "Yeah, but it was kind of looking like it was wondering what we're doing on its territory." And I was like, okay. And then he's like, "Yeah, so just don't panic, because they can smell fear." And I was thinking, yep, I'm already feeling panicked. Great. And just keep calm and face it. But to be honest, it's not the ones that you see that bite you anyway. It's like, oh, okay, fantastic. And then he pops up again, and he's like, "Well, it just kind of came to check us out again." So I just kind of relaxed, of course, like I was supposed to, and enjoyed the rest of our snorkel. But it decided to go away after the sight of 2 naked snorkelers, and we carried on and enjoyed an absolutely beautiful afternoon in that little wee bay. For dinner, we decided it was my turn to have a bit of a mission, and I wanted to catch us some fish. Otherwise, what's the point in packing that fishing rod into that little plane? So we decided to go around part way to where we went for Baz's spear into the sweet little set of reefs, which was a little bit scary, really, but Baz was happy to kind of navigate our way around and anchor up on the back of this set of reefs in here. And then while we're there, I chucked my lines out, and Baz had a look, and he was like, "Oh, I think I need to get out there and spear something." So we have a look at the water, and we're like, "Yeah, there's a bit of current flowing through here, and but we're not really sure how much." So we make up a plan, which is not really sufficient, to be honest. But we're like, yeah, if you drift too far away, you'll have to come around and get me. You have to bring the anchor up and by yourself, and then sail around all those reefs and come pick me up. You'll be right. So anyway, I'm there fishing away. Every time the rod hits the bottom, I'm getting a fish. So I'm frantically doing this while Baz is off spearing. I didn't notice too much, really, that he just completely disappeared once he started heading out to the little rock that you can see out further at sea. and he's got caught in the tide, and it is just dragging him away. And then I'm throwing back these tiny fish, trying to catch a bigger one, and I hear this yell, "Hey, hey!" And it's Baz, and he's like a good 150 meters back off the boat, paddling furiously towards me, and he's like, "Throw me a rope!" I'm like, okay. There's lots of rope here, but they're all attached to things like sails, and I don't know where your ropes are. So I'm like yelling back, "Where are your ropes?" And he like tells me where they are, and he uses words like port and starboard and stuff. And I'm like, I think port, that's left, something like that. There's some port left in the bottle or something. So I head off to port and can't find a long rope, find some 10-meter rope, throw a life jacket to it, chuck it off the back. I'm like, that's not going to help. That's like 10% of the way to a Baz. I find another rope, tie it to that. I'm like, what kind of knots do you use? I'm like, I don't know. Do I look like a sailor? What am I doing here? And but anyway, I get about 30 meters of rope out the back to him. Baz is a champ, and he's got plenty of paddle fitness, so he just steadily works his way back in, nice and calmly, / panicking, no doubt, because it would be pretty scary not being able to get back to your boat. And but he makes it. The wind carries the life jacket that I've attached to the rope nicely in his direction, and he grabs onto it and has a little rest while I pull him the rest of the way in. And then he goes and crashes inside and has a little bit of a rest while I catch dinner. And I got us 2 nice snaps actually, which was sweet for dinner. I didn't have to pull up an anchor by myself. Baz survived. He didn't drown, and yeah, all was good. And then we headed back in. For the evening, we cruised back to the really nice sheltered bay that we'd had the first night, and saw this monstrosity of a ship that's owned by Michael Hill, the Beast. It is so ugly, but still looked pretty amazing. And ran into who I think's Baz's brother-in-law, who insisted that they take us out on their big launch for a bit of a fish the next day. And so we went out, and we had quite an... So it's a lovely boat. We've got Baz on board, the skipper, and we got a couple young fellas and their little runabout, and Baz's brother-in-law, I think he is, called Brian. So there's 2 Brians. It's very confusing. And we head out to near the same spot that we had a bit of trouble in yesterday. And as you can see in the picture here, there's beautiful calm water, but then big rocks. And what we're looking at here is, there's sweet towers of rocks that just drop into like 19-20 meters of water. And the skipper, he's been around a couple of years. He's about 79 years old salty dog, knows what he's doing, knows his ship. And he parks us up on the inside of this reef instead of the outside that we were at yesterday. And we're like 20 odd meters off these rocks, and he's just trying to get his anchor to set so that we can get Baz and Brian out to do a little bit of scuba diving. And we're backing up on the anchor, try and get it to set, and I look out off the top and notice that we're running over the little boat, which has got a name that I can't remember. And so I yell out, watch out for the boat. And they're like, oh no, the kids are supposed to be looking after that. And we stop the boat. We're 15 meters off these big rocks. And we have a look, and sure enough, the rope for the tender, there's that name, has got tangled around the prop, and we're slowly drifting in. So we get Baz to mask up, and we're going to get him to go into the boat and free it up. And meanwhile, he's getting ready to go under there and free it up, and we're just getting closer and closer to these rocks. We get far too close, and we just have to fire up while the rope's still around the prop, and we just motor off a little bit. Fortunate enough that the rope doesn't, pull the prop out or the drive shaft out, and we get a bit of distance, and we're able to then drop anchor, and Baz clears it, and there's no harm done, which was excellent. Then we decided we'd actually head round to this other rock instead of where we were, and because there's a bit less surge, and it was actually a really beautiful spot that these boys got off and had a scuba in. And Baz got a couple crays, maybe 3 crays, which was really nice. and Brian had a bit of a scuba, and the boys hooned around in their little boat, and it was quite a nice little afternoon. And after that, we headed back and enjoyed a feed together. We got the boats up back to back and tied them together, rafted up, and enjoyed a couple beverages and our cray. It was delicious. The next day we had what was by far our laziest day. We sailed around to the bottom of the island and discovered a beautiful deserted bay with these amazing reef structures that you can see there in the picture that basically started straight under the boat. You could see to the bottom easily, and you could just jump off, go for a snorkel, swim out to the point. There's fish everywhere, some amazing opportunities for spearfishing. And we just had a lazy day. We just lazed around all day, snorkeling. Baz got us a butterfish. We had 1,000 swims and generally just lazed about. As the evening came about, it all glassed off, and I insisted on emptying the fridge of any excess meat and trying to use it to catch some more fish for dinner. It was pretty disgusting and hilarious, and I had no luck at all, but it was fun. And then we crashed out for a good night's sleep before the big day tomorrow.
Oh yeah, Joel doing the magic. Come on, hold it up for the video.
Oh mate, I'm not going to hold this poor little guy up.
Woke up at absolute sunset, ready for a huge trip. We had about 10 hours of motoring to do because there was no wind back from here all the way to Tauranga, but the conditions were absolutely beautiful. And as we motored back, it was blue as blue can be. And at one point we stopped up in the middle of the nowhere, 60 meters of water, and jumped overboard one at a time so we didn't lose the boat. And it was just so blue, probably 30 meters of visibility under there. It was absolutely crystal clear. And we had a lovely run all the way back to Tauranga. When we got there, Chris came up from his mountain biking. We'd decided to ditch on my plan to do mountain biking because Chris was tired. I was tired. We'd extended the stay by a day because I'd been delayed getting there by a day. And Chris made a nice detour from Rotorua over to Tauranga to pick me up, which was very nice of him. I fed him burger fuel, and then we drove home. What a mission. Massive shout out and thank you to my mates who all made this happen. Paddy with the flights and getting another plane, and Jess with the transfer, and Baz sailing me around, Chris picking me up, and of course to Naomi who took Summer and Lacey away for a holiday and let me have some time away with the boys just for a chill trip. So that's me. Until next time.